Hi, my name is Nolan Lamkin. I'm a MotoAmerica Stock 1000 and Superbike Cup racer. This past season in 2023, I won the Superbike Cup Championship and finished 5th out of 64 in the Stock 1000 class. This is Racing Insights. This is episode 2. Episode 1, we went over Brainerd Race 2, the Stock 1000 race, and covering more of the 2023 season and showing off some of the other stuff that went on kind of behind the scenes with it. We're covering the second half of the season right now. Like I said, the past episode was Brainerd, and now we're going to look at the final 3 races of the year in an overview. First, we're going to go over Pittsburgh International Race Complex, then go into Circuit of the Americas, and then follow it up with New Jersey Motorsports Park. This time, we're going to have a mix of photos and video from the different races. Going from Brainerd, we finished 4th in that race, worked our way up from 11th place and finished in 4th, and we knew we had good speed. After the race weekend was done, I was going through and sifting through the information after the weekend and saw that we had finished, we had the second fastest Sector 1 time out of the entire race, and we had the fastest Sector 2 time of the entire race. There was some stuff in particular that we felt like we needed to work on, and the main thing for me was our braking stability, where I was riding with Travis Wyman and Ezra Bobier, like if you watched the last video. And they were really able to outbrake me in a few of the different areas around Brainerd. And with that, the main goal for us going to Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh was only a Superbike Cup race weekend. So a quick little breakdown. I raced in 2 classes, Stock 1000 and the Superbike Cup. The Stock 1000 is we're racing super stock-ish bikes, limited modifications. Supposedly it's supposed to be what you're supposed to be able to go to your dealership, buy one of those, and then go race those bikes. And they're all 1000cc bikes. The Superbike Cup is an extra class that I race in. So we take our Stock 1000 legal bike and race it up a class in Superbike. So Superbikes cost exorbitantly more. They're around $130,000 for one bike, which is crazy. My bike was not anywhere near that amount. And with that, we race up a class. So on a race weekend that has both Stock 1000 and the Superbike Cup, we're racing in 4 races at least. For other race weekends like this past year at Pittsburgh, there were only 2 races. We were only doing the Superbike Cup. So it actually allowed us kind of more free time, more time to go through some of the different things. For me, personally, I like doing more races. I want to show what I'm capable of as a rider, where I've got double the amount of stuff going on. We're racing the same bike, and we're a lean and mean program. My crew chief Dustin and my mechanic Donnie are both great. And then this past season we were able to work with Steve Weir, which was cool as well. And with all of that, going into Pittsburgh, it was only a Stock 1000 or a Superbike Cup weekend. So these are just some of the collection of photos from Pittsburgh. We had a great time there. With it being only the Superbike Cup, it allowed us more free time, and there are some specific things that we wanted to work on. For us, we were just running in the Superbike sessions, but the weekend turned out well for us. I had some of the best photos of the year, in my opinion, at Circuit of the Americas. I love this photo right here. This is coming out of turn 4. And for me, in my riding position, I look at photos and I get as low as anybody else on the exit. And for me, I look like I'm kind of crossed up on entry. And it's like certain photographers, they'll get a photo of me, and if they get it on entry, I look at it, I'm like, man, I don't really like that as much. Just being the harsh self-critic that I am. And they're looking on the exit, I'm like, man, these things are freaking sweet. So this weekend was cool for us. We were able to make a lot of improvements. The track at Pittsburgh this year, they changed the configuration of the track slightly. So they added a different chicane on the back straightaway. On the back half, there's a chicane to help slow the speed down. And MotoAmerica for 2023, they added in a different kind of cement chicane there, and it helped to slow some people down. Ironically, there were some incidents this year, like with Cam Bobier and Ashton Yates. But so the speed overall of the lap was a little bit slower. But for me and for us and my team, we actually went faster this year, where we dropped like 2 seconds in the first 2 sectors, where there's 3 sectors around the track. And the third sector is where that final chicane was. that they added that changed things out a little bit. But the first two sectors, we were right there. And racing in the Superbike Cup, I'm racing against a bunch of Superbikes. There's not a bunch of stock 1,000 bikes in this past season. So for us, like, the yardstick was going against more difficult people, which for me was great. And we ended up winning this championship the following weekend in COTA, but we'll get to that here shortly. So we were fighting different issues this weekend, and it felt like I was having to fight the bike so much. And we ended up trying some different suspension things, and that's a nice thing on a weekend like this. And also some of the other stuff that goes on where you don't want to be talking, I don't want to be talking about things as if they're negative all of the time, but there's things that go into it. And I like being able to share this information where this is some of the other stuff that was going on. It's not perfect all of the time. It's got to be perfect for certain amounts of time. And so for us, we were really struggling with the bike was moving around so much. I went out, Corey Alexander and Cam Bobier went out on track for qualifying Q2, qualifying 2, which is our final qualifying session, and it was Saturday morning. And I'm coming up out of turn 5, and the bike spins sideways and it high sides me, and it shoots me up out of the seat, and I pop my face off the windscreen. And I passed Corey Alexander because there was a sighting lap for them, because they had just gone out together, and it looked like Corey was trying to get a tow from Cam Bobier. And I popped my face off the windscreen on the bike behind Cam Bobier. I was like, wow, well, this is interesting. And there were certain things that I just wasn't able to get the bike to do for me, where I was trying to keep a tighter line in certain sections, and I'd be behind other people, and these would be full-blown factory superbikes. And we just weren't able to necessarily have that same speed. And we were trying to figure out different issues, and we had 2 shocks that were the exact same setting, same everything. And we ran this one, we ran it for race 1 on Saturday. And so for Sunday, something's weird. We don't know what the issue is. We put in a different shock with the exact same setting, and then our stroke travel, the average was like 4 millimeters less, because there was a certain average that we were trying to hit with Steve Weir, and for some reason we just couldn't get it. And then they're also the highest peak number, where we were using, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, something along the lines of 39 millimeters of stroke was way too much. But we were on the stiffest spring that we had, the stiffest spring that was available, and we were still blowing through it. So I was really strange and kind of puzzled about that. And with that, we put in this other shock, exact same settings, same everything, and bang, all of a sudden we were averaging 4 millimeters of travel less. We weren't using nearly as much suspension stroke. So, wow, well, at least we figured out something here. It was a little strange, but then we were able to take that information, and going into the next weekend, COTA, which is a dual stock 1,000 and Superbike Cup weekend, was able to work out a lot better for us. However, long story short, I really love my body position in a lot of these photos. The last 2 and this one here, it really shows how much I was having to fight the bike to get it to do what we were doing on the Tom Wood Power Sports BMW S1000. And yeah, it was a good weekend, fun weekend. And again, another photo that I just absolutely love in the S's at Pittsburgh International Raceway race complex, and hitting that left, and you can see the track. And yeah, again, a lovely time. We finished second and first. We had a DNF in race 2, which was a little unfortunate, but it is what it is. And yeah, then I was battling with the guy that I was fighting for with the championship, Gabriel Da Silva, on Saturday, and we finished, I think, neck and neck in that race, and I ended up finishing in second. And in the long run of things, it's like, okay, time to just kind of take the points, which is not at all what I want to do. But then on Sunday in race 3, because we had 3 races this weekend, not going to get into all of that, I was able to go out and beat the guy by 10 seconds. So we were able to really kind of figure out some different stuff. And I'm going down the front straightaway at Pittsburgh, and I can see my crew chief, and they're holding the board out, and I can tell kind of what's going on based on his expressions, his reactions, his response to things, along with the pit board, where I've got certain information on there that tells me what I need to know. And yeah, we ended up finishing this weekend 2 seconds off of a factory superbike, or it was a BMW superbike, which we're on a BMW on a stock 1000 bike. And to be within 2 seconds of a lap on a stock bike compared to a full superbike was incredible. And it was really great to see. This track, it was more of a rider's track. There wasn't a real long straightaway. There wasn't some of the things that a full superbike is able to take advantage of. And with that, we were able to make good progress, make good steps. We were able to try different things out and then have the expectation going into the last stock 1000 race weekend, which was Circuit of the Americas. Yeah, had a wonderful time. And I was getting messages from my mechanic and crew chief after the weekend was done, and we were talking about some of the different stuff. And yeah, this weekend we're going to Circuit of the Americas. And Circuit of the Americas in Texas, we knew it was going to be hot. It was like 105 degrees. The humidity was not terrible, because actually I was looking in Indiana, and like the humidity as I'm walking around this park in Indiana was like 90% humidity, but it was only like 87 degrees. And the real feel was like 100. And then Texas, the temperature was like 105, but the humidity was only like 60%, 50%, 40%. So I'm just trying to convince myself, like, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be great. So I'm used to this stuff back home. Going to Texas, it'll be like no big deal, just because it's all different mental things that all of us racers are going to do. And going to Circuit of the Americas, I was able to debut my second in Indiana / Visit Indiana helmet. Being able to work with the state's been super cool, and did a couple of custom helmets this year. This is the second one, which I have here. This is the second one that I have right here. My brother actually did the paint jobs on it, which I find to be super cool, and had our little sandwich board up as well, which was fantastic. And being able to have this stuff at COTA, get photos taken by Sarah Chappell. Super grateful to be able to work with a bunch of different photographers from the MotoAmerica races, Karen Ott, Brian J. Nelson, and then do some stuff with Sarah Chappell as well. It's all cool. I love being able to work with the different photographers and get their own unique kind of taste, lens, and different stuff from the weekends, just because I'm a nerd. Yeah. So mentioning about how it was so hot, this is my crew chief and mechanic from setup day. They found a pallet of ice, and obviously they were happy to indulge, because we knew it was going to be warm. And so the first session was for stock 1000. And so when we're racing stock 1000 and the Superbike Cup in the same weekend, we only go in one class. We only go out in the stock 1000 sessions, and then we'll do the Superbike races on top of it. But we're not doing both full Superbike sessions and full stock 1000 sessions. There was some different stuff that people had done in 2022, but get into that at a later date. So this is for the first session, and there's some different stuff, and overall the first session was okay. It was my first time ever going to COTA on the 1000. So like Travis Wyman had raced there the year before, and some of the other people had some time there. But at the end of the day, it's all just a racetrack, and we were excited to get going. And again, fantastic photograph by Brian J. Being able to have the track at COTA, the first sector, seeing how it's all switches back and forth, and it was super physical, and we'll get into that here in a second. Not necessarily the physicality, but the flip-flops back and forth through the first sector. And the first session was great. There's some different stuff that we could work on. It wasn't the best session by any means. There's always something that we can do to improve, but we had good speed, good pace, and there were some other just kind of small things that, like, okay, we get this stuff sorted out, then we'll be pretty good going forward. And then, again, just some cool photos from the weekend. The afternoon session was really difficult, and we made the gearing change. We made some of the other stuff, and we had some weird kind of glitch with our electronics, and essentially the bike wouldn't rev above 9,000 RPM. And on the BMW, it revs to 14,000, and it wouldn't rev above 9,000 when the bike was leaned over. If it was fully straight up and down, rev no problem, had no issues. But through the first sector, which we were talking about before, and all those flip-flops back and forth, I had no throttle until the bike was upright. And it was just some weird glitch. And one of the things that's going on for us in particular is we're going out and racing in these MotoAmerica races. We're putting so much time on the equipment. We're riding at such a high pace. Not trying to get egotistical or anything, but there's so much stuff that's happening. Like compared to the average person, they would never experience any of the issues that I have, or what some of the people have on track, just because stuff's kind of different. Like it's cool being able to give my feedback to Revit on the suits, because there's certain things that I might notice putting my suit on however many times in a weekend, in a year, for all of the different training and whatnot. So then you, the consumer, you, the customer, you, the racer, you're able to go and get this product. And if you don't use it necessarily to the same level that we do, you know that we've done the product testing, we've done the different things. So getting into that, we had some electronic issues, and essentially the bike wouldn't rev above 9,000 RPM. So the whole first sector, I had no throttle until I got the bike totally vertical. So I'd throw the thing in and I'd be trying to pick it up as quick as possible just to get a little bit of throttle. And it was so sketchy going through the whole first sector and so many of the exit corners, because it'd be basically banging off the limiter. It wouldn't be on the limiter, getting into all that. And we knew we had something going on. We just weren't quite sure what it was. And one of the big issues is the heat. The heat played a lot of issues on a lot of different people. Several people blew motors this weekend. Several people had overheating issues. Several people had other electronic stuff. And electronics don't like to be hot. So to a certain extent, maybe that was something. We don't know exactly, which is always difficult. Not necessarily what we want to have happen, but we know at the end of the day, it's something that's a part of racing. So we then go through all of the different stuff, go into race one on Saturday after having not much time at all on track. And we get through the first stock 1000 race. We have decent pace. We have podium pace, but because we had pretty much no laps leading up to the session, the main plan was to get stuff ready for Sunday, test some different stuff out, try different things. And we were able to try stuff in the stock 1000 race. Again, we had podium pace towards the end of the race. We just needed to get a better start on Sunday, and then we'll be right there. And cover some more about that here in a minute. But and the Superbike race was good as well. Going into the Sunday races, we then we were able to get Steve Weir to go through more of the stuff on the bike, and my crew chief and I were trying a bunch of different things on the bike, because the feeling that I was trying to get wasn't quite there, and we didn't know what was going on. Dustin turned the bike upside down. We tried so many different things, suspension-wise, raising the front, lowering the front, different springs, different this, different that, and we couldn't get the stuff to work out, and we were having a terrible time. We couldn't figure out what necessarily was going on, but with some of the other stuff, we knew that it was kind of par with the territory, and we just had to make the best with what we've got, because like I said, with racing, that's how stuff goes. You're never able to plan everything out, and stuff's always evolving. Stuff's always changing. We were able to get some help from TSE this weekend, along with Stefan Lipsky. So we were working through some different things, but we didn't know what quite was going on. And then talking with Steve, he says to me, he sees the issue that we're having, but it's something that we can't change immediately in the weekend. It's something that I just got to deal with. And he says, this is not going to be a Band-Aid fix. What I'm doing right now is a cast. Just make it through the weekend, and we'll regroup for New Jersey, just with how stuff is going on, which isn't what we want to hear. And it's not something that is great to see. And is one of the difficult things with racing, doing this on a small program, doing everything that I can to help make the program successful. It's amazing to have the help of the partners we've got with Tomwood Powersports, Viz Indiana, RNG, and being able to build that whole team together. I'm the first racer that my family's ever had. A lot of people, they have family connections, they have this, they have that, and that may not necessarily be my situation. So being able to do everything that we've got going into it. So going into the first stock 1000 race, thought we had good stuff, which that'll come to light here in a second. Thought we had good stuff. We were excited because we knew we had pretty much podium pace. And after the weekend, Dustin, my crew chief, and I were talking about things, and we both had the expectation that we were coming here to win. after the race weekend that we had at Brainerd, where we pretty much had, we had the second fastest Sector 1 time. We had the fastest Sector 2 time. We knew that we were right there, and the expectation was to go and win. So I was sitting on the starting line thinking to myself, all right, I just got to make it up as quick as I can. And I take off from the starting line, and I'm going to do the sighting lap. And it's the lap that we do right before lights go out and we start racing. And I feel the bike kind of hiccup off the starting line. That feels a little weird, but I don't really know what that is. So then moving forward, I'm going through the lap and I'm going through the carousel turn. And again, I'm on the throttle and it feels like it's kind of hiccuping. And it's not quite there, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just imagining things. I'm not sure. And take off from the line for the start, and the bike falls flat on its face. And I've got no throttle. And then it comes back, and it's a really weird feeling, not sure quite what's going on. And long story short, we ended up having to pull out of the Stock 1000 race because I was going down the back straightaway on the first lap, and literally the bike just falls flat on its face. And it's just pop, 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 going nowhere. So pull out. The championship that we were going for is the Superbike Cup Championship, which was in 2 hours after the Stock 1000 race. So we were going to regroup and figure out what we needed to do for the Stock 1000, going from the Stock 1000 race into the Superbike race / Superbike Cup race. And Steve Weir was going through different things on the electronics. We were having Germany, my friend in Germany, help us out with some stuff. And the picture on the left, we're sitting on the grid for the Superbike race, and I have no idea if the bike's going to work or not. We have no idea if the stuff was able to change out. We thought we had changed everything out, but we weren't sure exactly. So I'm just sitting on the grid, crossing my fingers, talking with people, hoping the bike is going to be good, because that's all we can do at this point. Not really sure what's going on. And we're just going out there to make sure that we do this race, and we're in this championship fight and doing what we can for it. And racing kind of has a mind of its own. And going into that, this is the end of the race. We end up winning the Superbike Cup Championship in this race. We lock out the championship. This video is taken from one of the supporters of the team, RNG, Simon. He was here for this weekend and took this video of us crossing the line, which I just love so much, because at that point we'd won the championship. I had seen something happen to Gabriel Da Silva, and I was trying to do the math in my head as I'm finishing that final lap, and okay, if I pass him, then I'm going to have this many points and this and that. I don't know. Because at the end of the day, if we win the Superbike Cup Championship, there's a pretty healthy bonus attached to it. And running this program on what we've got, putting everything into it, that stuff makes a huge difference to us. And yeah, it was really exciting. And then this is the footage from the live broadcast from the race after we locked up the Superbike Cup Championship, which none of us were really expecting. We weren't.
Look right there at the number 21. That is Nolan Lamkin coming across the line. And we also see Richie Escalani, who got back up and at least came around and got a finish. He'll be deep in the field, not going to be points. But there is the look of the 21 and Nolan Lamkin. And on the last lap, this is a big development. It looks like Gabriel Da Silva either had a mechanical or dropped or fell, and Nolan Lamkin, Gabriel was in front of Nolan, and this is for the Superbike Cup, which is a fairly prestigious championship for the 1-liter bike supporting the Superbikes. And Lamkin, on the last lap, after having been behind Gabriel Da Silva for the whole race, Lamkin goes into the leading. Da Silva has fallen down the order. This may clinch the championship for Nolan, because there's only 2 races left, and he was make sure I got this right. 48 points up coming in, and so all he had to do was score 2 more than De Silva, and he may well have done that. He might be your Superbike Cup champ, Roger.
Yeah, and for Nolan, what a great year he's had, even in Stock 1000. So it's great for him. Puts a lot in his program. Great kid, and you talk about being prestigious, but also some money. For a guy like Nolan to go right back into his race program.
Yeah, for that Tom Wood Power Sports machine, but.
So some slight technical difficulties there, getting the video and everything all synced up. Roger Hayden and the other announcer, Greg Kramer, just talked about us winning the Superbike Cup Championship, and it was fantastic. Like they mentioned in it, Gabriel De Silva was leading, and we were able to win the championship. After everything that had happened leading up to it in that weekend, unexpected to say the very least, and after not even being sure, sitting on the starting line, having no idea if the bike's going to run, because the race before, in the Stock 1000 race, the siding lap felt fine. It was the warm-up lap that then didn't work. It was the lap right before we take off for the race that then I felt something. And so I'm sitting on the grid, still thinking to myself, man, I have no idea, and we might have the exact same issue that we had before, and had no idea. But again, won the Superbike Cup Championship. If you're keeping track of this like a storyteller, basically Pittsburgh was the introduction. It was, we did good. And then going into COTA was the conflict. It was the rising action where we're having some different issues and different things going on. Climax, winning the Superbike Cup Championship. That was the peak. And then now we're going to go into the resolution, which is New Jersey Motorsports Park. New Jersey is a great track. I love going there. And the weekend, we knew it was going to be dry on Friday, and then the rest of the weekend, we weren't quite sure. There was like a hurricane or something coming through, and Saturday and Sunday were both going to be wet. Friday was going to be our only dry day. So after the issues that we had at COTA, we then go into New Jersey, not really sure what's going to happen. And going to it, first session, bike feels fantastic. And for us, we're running a lean and mean program. We're sharing an electronics guy, Steve Weir, with Corey Alexander this last year. Corey's on a $130,000 Superbike. Again, I'm just on a stock 1000 bike. And sometimes when we need to make electronic changes, because Steve is not on the wall with us and me and my team, that's something that's being able to have that support from BMW USA. But Steve's going to be in Corey Alexander's pit. So sometimes we might need to make electronic changes this past season, but we weren't able to really do that because we didn't have the guy on the wall with us. There's some different stuff that's going to be changed for this year, which I'm super excited about for 2024. But for the beginning, first session, FP1 at New Jersey, we're like 5th in the beginning of the session. I come in, and I'm like, man, this bike feels incredible. It feels fantastic. And then I look, and at that time, we're still like 6th or something in the session, 7th. And we're ahead of a bunch of the $130,000 super bikes. There's certain things that I need changed where we were having a lot of engine braking happening at the track. And so this is in 3B at New Jersey. The turn before 3A is a right-hander. I'd brake going into that right-hander, and there'd be so much engine braking that I'd be tucking the front. Plus, it was so bumpy that I'd tuck the front, and then I'd pull it back, and then take it into the next 3B, which is here. And then 3C was also super bumpy. So I'm standing up on the bike like it's a motocross bike. Basically, to let the bike move underneath me, and then I'm staying kind of on top of it, kind of like a horse jockey. And with that, we were really excited because we knew we had good speed. Some of the other people were able to go out and then make those electronic changes that we weren't necessarily able to do. And so then they were able to creep up kind of past us. But it was really cool. And how many people came up to me afterwards and were saying how well we did. It's like, okay, this is the speed that I knew we had. And it was great having all of that happen at one time, basically. And again, this is only a Superbike Cup race weekend. No Stock 1000 Superbike Cup. That championship wrapped up the weekend before. And this was only a Superbike weekend. And the bike was wheeling a lot over turn 4 here. But honestly, one of the things that I found to do is I'm using the rear brake here in this photo, but I don't really use the rear brake for wheelies that much. And it's one of the things that Jason Pridmore taught me, and eventually Matt Mladen had taught Jason himself. But using the rear brake on the thing, you're killing the RPM of the bike. So what I actually do is I'll roll out of the throttle so I can feel it happening myself. And then there's a certain point at which I feel the bike and the front wheel starts to dive back down again. And when it dives back down, then I can start feeding that throttle back in before the bike has actually touched the front wheel back to the ground. I like using the wheelie control and some of the other stuff that BMW has, which makes the bike a lot of fun to ride. But sometimes in circumstances like this, if we were to turn the wheelie control all the way up to kill this wheelie, it'd have no power anywhere else around the track. And like for superbikes, they're able to do this thing called sectoring, where for a superbike, they can set the wheelie control and the traction control and some of the other engine braking settings per corner around the track. For us, we just have one map for the entire track on a stock 1000 bike. So that's just one of the details that I had about riding the bike this year. Then after Friday, which was dry and warm and beautiful, then we go into Saturday, and Saturday was wet. It was very wet. I love this photo. The photo is absolutely beautiful. So you can see how much spray was coming off the back of the tire. It was wet, to say the very least. And race 1 in New Jersey, we ended up qualifying in the dry 0.2 seconds behind Corey Alexander on a $130,000 superbike. Again, I'm on my stock 1000 bike. Qualified 0.2 of a second behind him, which was also really, really cool. Then in the wet, we're figuring some of the different stuff out on the bike. This is the first time we've ridden the bike in the wet all year long. So working through some of the other stuff. That's Ashton Yates in front of me in the race. So work our way up. And then Ashton's on, again, a superbike BMW. And I'm behind him. And so midway through the race, I'm going down the front straightaway. He's up in front of me, and I'm trying to figure out a way to get around him. And then all of a sudden, I see this kind of puff of smoke or vapor or something. A big cloud. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not looking like water. That does not look like water at all. And he ended up blowing a motor. So he blew a motor, and then there's oil from his blown motor, and it covers me, covers the track. And I'm going into turn 1, and I'm trying to figure out where do I go to avoid the oil, because if I get oil on my tire in the rain, that's just a disaster waiting to happen. I don't want to have any of that. So then he pulls off to the inside, and I go around the outside, and I'm able to get around it. But with that oil, it covers the front of me. It covers my visor. It covers the windscreen on the bike. So this is going down the front straightaway. One, you can see how much freaking tape we had on that radiator to keep the bike warm. But 2, I'm sitting off to the side of the bike where I'm not going down the straightaway just tucked in fully on the bike. I'm leaned off to the side to get the water and to get the air as I'm going down the front straightaway to basically clean off my visor, because I couldn't see anything because Ashton's bike had blown up. So that was certainly interesting, to say the very least. And then going into the race on Sunday, that's Josh Herron in front of us, and then Matthew Skoltz behind us. Going into this race, the weather was changing, and it looked like it was going to be drying up. And we had some different conversations, talked to my crew chief, and we kind of come up with a plan. He had asked me, do we want to go split, like a rain front tire and a slick rear tire? And for me, I was like, no, we go one or the other. Either we're going full slick or we're going full wet. Because if we go half and half, then the tracks, it's either going to be more wet or it's going to be more dry. And one of the tires is going to be bad. Either the front tire is going to be bad because it's too dry for a slick, or the rear tire is going to be too bad because it's too wet for a dry. So for us, it's all right, let's just stick with one. This race was actually super informative because there's some different things that I was able to pick from it, riding rain tires in the dry, because basically the track did dry up. The front straightaway, there's a huge puddle. There's a huge puddle in a couple other areas, but the rest of the track was pretty dry. So some of the other guys made some different tire choices. And for me, we'd come up with a game plan, me and my crew chief on the starting line. And if we got a good start, the plan was just to go. Who cares if we smoke the tire? Just try and get up as quick as possible. Go make up as many places as we can and do as well as we can in a full superbike race on a stock 1000 bike. going into turn one of the guys broke a chain and had an issue, and then Matt Skoltz had something happen with him as well, and I'm on the outside, and all this is happening to the inside, and so then I get bundled up, and I get pushed to the outside, and a bunch of people go flying up underneath me, and then I'm sat thinking to myself, this is a terrible time. This is not at all what I wanted to have happen. This is the exact opposite of what I wanted to have happen. So then I'm fighting my way back through. This is still the first lap. This is turn 3. Going in through turn 4 into turn 5. And I can see Josh Herron was having some issues. And again, just the way the stuff was happening, he went super tight into that turn, so I wasn't able to get up underneath him. I was on the outside of him, and he crashes, tucks the front. And the way that our bikes are positioned, his bike's sliding, and I'm kind of stuck there. So I basically have to come to a stop and let his bike slide away out of the track. And at that point, then another 3 people pass me up underneath. And I'm just sat here thinking to myself, like, this is the opposite. The first turn was a disaster. Turn 5 was a disaster. This is not what I wanted to have happen. And we end up fighting through, and we do really well. We're running as high as 8th in this race. Again, you can see the TV camera up on the left, fight my way through, and then that's Bobby Fong in front of me, and then Ashton Yates. And Bobby Fong had actually qualified on pole in the Superbike race at Pittsburgh this year, which we're right behind him, which is super cool. And then Ashton Yates is in front of him. We were right behind Ashton the day before. Obviously, he had his motor blow up. Then another couple laps past Ashton, and I'm able to create a gap in between him, and then Bobby Fong is in front of me. And at this point, this is the last race of the year. Like, we already have the Superbike Cup Championship wrapped up. I'm just going to do the best that I can. Like, it doesn't really matter what happens. I'm just going to pass Bobby. I mean, the bike that he's on was Jake Gagne's bike in like 2022, I believe. So, and Bobby Fong, obviously, he won the Supersport Championship when I was racing in Supersport. Bobby Fong's always been a super fast guy, so the fact that I'm right behind him right now is super cool. And there's some areas that I was able to really make up some speed on some of the other guys. And we're going to play a video here in a second. This is from the broadcast on the MotoAmerica race from from Superbike Race 2.
On a Medallia Superbike. Here's another battle for 8th place, Jay.
Yeah, really good to see Nolan Lamkin up here battling with Bobby Fong. So for Nolan, I think he won the Superbike Cup this year, and he's been coming to these races on his stock 1000 BMW. For Bobby, just hasn't had quite the weekend that we know that we're used to seeing him have. He's had some incredible Superbike rides since he took over that ride for Dave Anthony on that Wrench R1. For Nolan Lamkin here, he's rolling around in 9th place. He just got by Ashton. You're going to see Ashton flash in the back of your screen there a lap or so ago. So for these two now, they're battling for 8th place.
So at this point, the track's pretty much dry. There's like some wet spots here, and there's some wet spots on the other side. And they're not going to show it right now, but I passed Bobby in this next right-hander. He would run the bike really wide, and I was able to carry more speed through that section. And I just ducked right up underneath him, past him, and then we'll go over something here in a minute that will be important in this race. Not in this video clip, but
he definitely has made big.
You're going to see me pass Bobby Fong at this point. And in this corner right here, I was really struggling. And I tried different things, and like you see Bobby right then, he went around the outside of that patch, and I went right over the middle of it. I'm on a stock 1000 bike, he's on a super bike.
BMW as they come onto the front straightaway.
Nolan's still rolling through that patch.
And yeah, talking about right now about how I was still rolling through that patch.
The leaders were going around it, but good for Nolan as he's going to be able to hold Bobby off down that front straightaway, and those two guys will continue their battle all the way to the finish. Looks like Nolan's just starting to gap him, though, a little bit here.
And so I pulled a little bit of a gap on him right then, and I had no idea that I'd even done that. I had no clue. I can't see what's going on behind me. We run as high as 8th place in that race. It was a great time. I had a wonderful time. Weren't able to bring it home in 8th. Unfortunately, we ended up tucking the front, going over that patch. At the end of the day, I'm fighting for position. I want to do as best as I can, as I've mentioned 1,000 times probably at this point. And in that left-hander, I tried something different on the final lap, or the next to last lap. I tried running the bike in third because everywhere else around the track, I was running basically a gear higher everywhere around there compared to what I might be doing in the dry. So normally I'd go through that turn in second gear. So for this one, let me try it in third, and maybe I'm able to carry more roll speed going through there, and that should be helpful. It should be beneficial. I do that. The bike doesn't have the RPMs that it had before because I'm a gear higher. So the bike's running a few thousand RPM less. And I would go right over that patch, and I had a little bit more lean angle than what I normally did. The bike ended up coming out from underneath me, which was unfortunate, but if I didn't go for the pass, who would I be? Be a terrible time. We ended up winning the Superbike Cup Championship, did the podium celebration, got the $25,000 check for winning the Superbike Cup, got the #1 plate. That's my crew chief on the right, Dustin, and then my mechanic, Donnie, and then my dad on the far left. This photo, we didn't have Steve Weir in it, but the races at New Jersey were incredible. It was a great time. Yeah, I'm super excited for this upcoming season. I have a bunch of great partners helping me with the team. Visit Indiana, Tom Wood Power Sports, RNG Crash Protection. Everybody that's able to help make the program what it is. And specifically, we're talking about having the bike skating down the track because I crashed in that race in New Jersey. The RNG Crash Protection was great because I picked the bike up in the wet, it was terrible. Picked the bike up and then still finished the race, and I think we ended up finishing like 11th place or something after running as high as 8th, which again wasn't necessarily what we were looking for, but at the end of the day, that's racing. We won the championship. What more can you ask for? Yeah, had a great time. I had a great time here in episode 2 of Racing Insights. Let me know what you would like for me to cover next. I love doing these race breakdowns. I know they're a bit longer. It's kind of in between a normal YouTube video and a podcast. Yeah, having a great time. This is Nolan Lamkin finishing up episode 2 of Racing Insights. Peace.